Security number, you are. And there are other adhesion contracts that you can enter into that give you the status of a United States citizen. Now I want you to listen. This is a letter written to Milton Pilot by the Commissioner of Social Security. And this is in the book written by Philip Marsh called The Complete Patriot. I'm going to read you this letter. Listen to it very carefully. Mr. Pilot sent a letter revoking his Social Security number. He wanted to get out of the status of being a United States citizen. This is the reply from the Commissioner of Social Security. Dear Mr. Pilot, I am responding to your notice of February the 14th, 1984. The law does not permit individuals to voluntarily withdraw from the Social Security program. See Sections 209 and 210 of the Social Security Act and Sections 3101 and 3121 of the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, which is a part of the Internal Revenue Code. Now, why is the Social Security Act part of the Internal Revenue Code? And he goes on to say here, or she does, the Social Security Act requires the Social Security Administration to establish and maintain records of wages and self-employment income for each individual whose work is covered under the program. See Sections 205C2A. Workers who do not want to use their Social Security numbers for religious or other reasons should get in touch with the Internal Revenue Service in their area to explain their position and receive advice on how to proceed. Social Security taxes must be paid on earnings from covered work or self-employment. A decision not to use a Social Security number does not exempt a worker from coverage. Employers must collect the taxes on earnings covered under Social Security and report those earnings to the Social Security Administration and the Internal Revenue Service. Social Security taxes can be refunded only when taxes over the maximum amount were paid or when taxes were paid in error. A refund can be claimed by filing an amended federal income tax return for the year in question. A worker may ask an employer not to use his or her Social Security number, but without it, we cannot enter those earnings on the worker's record. They will remain in a suspense file and will not be credited until the worker furnishes his or her Social Security number and evidence of earnings. We have no authority to require an employer to provide or deny employment to anyone who refuses to disclose his or her Social Security number. This is a matter between the individual and the employer. If you have any further questions, the people in any Social Security office will be glad to help you. Signed, Martha A. McSteen, Acting Commissioner. Now, I hope you were listening to that last paragraph. You see how the Social Security system has been set up in order to gather information on your earnings for the Internal Revenue Service. You've been trapped. And it is a contract, and it makes you a United States citizen under the federal government and requires you to pay income tax. But the last paragraph here says, we have no authority to require an employer to provide or deny employment to anyone who refuses to disclose his or her Social Security number. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. And if the employer makes it a condition of employment, you can sue them. And you should. Now here's the truth of the matter. You see, there were a lot of lies in that letter. The law itself states that Social Security is a voluntary program. And anything voluntary going in under the law is voluntary going out. Now, employers, beware. You better listen to me carefully if you are an employer, because you can get in serious trouble as more and more people begin to wake up by trying to make people give you their Social Security number or make them fill out W-4 forms or from withholding income tax from their wages. Listen to me carefully. You see, we have a very serious problem in the U.S. today, and it deals with fraud. It's a massive fraud perpetrated by a private corporation on the people of the United States, and it's currently causing a lot of people to go out of business and causing a lot of deaths. Most business bankruptcies are caused by this fraud perpetrated by a private corporation. And this massive fraud is being perpetrated on the American people by the Internal Revenue Service. Yes, it is a private corporation, folks, and I'm holding the papers of incorporation in my hand at this moment. And you can get a copy of these incorporation papers from the Pilot Connection. So when that phony whistleblower from the Tom Valentine show said that the IRS is an agency of the federal government, he was not telling you the truth. It's a private corporation registered in the state of Delaware. Copies of their incorporation papers are available from the Pilot Connection for $5. $5 donation they'll send you. Also, government agencies have a franking privilege, which means free postage. Yet every time you get a letter from the IRS, it shows that they paid postage. Their letters, envelopes are either metered or there's regular postage stamps on them. That alone proves that it is not an agency of the United States government, but is a private corporation. Just look at the rubber stamp used by the IRS to cancel checks. The withholding of wages from employees entails one of, if not the most heinous frauds ever perpetrated. And I wish we could go into greater detail, but it's too voluminous to cover in this short period of time. But the Pilot Connection can help you out, and I'll give you their name and address and phone number later. But I'm going to give you a short outline here. Number one, the IRS code 3402F, that's 3402F, states that the W-4 has to be a withholding exemption certificate. It has to state that, a withholding exemption certificate. The Code of Federal Regulations, 26 CFR, states that if one word is changed on the certificate, that it is an invalid certificate that does not have to be signed. Now look at the W-4 withholding allowance certificate. Notice it says withholding allowance certificate instead of the required withholding exemption certificate that the IRS is furnishing. Now section 3402P of the code says that the withholding agreements are voluntary in the first place. Voluntary, folks. It's in law. Section 3504 of the IRS code states that an employer must be designated as a withholding agent in order to withhold taxes from an employee's check. This is done through Form 2678. Now ask your employer if he has a Form 2678. If he does not, he cannot withhold taxes from your check. It's in the law. We have yet to find an employer who has a Form 2678. Now, if you think for 1 minute that this is not real, try calling the IRS. Use a phony name, they always do, and tell them that you are an employer and your employee is about to sue you for taking money out of his wages for taxes for the IRS. They will tell you, folks, that it's not their problem. And it's not. It's your problem, see? You've been doing something that's wrong. And at that point, you should be alerted to be aware that this is a serious problem, and if you're an employer, you're in jeopardy of being sued by your employees. The IRS Strategic Plan of 1984, folks, is an insane plan designed to put all small businesses out of business. And you can get that whole plan by sending $48 to the Pilot Connection. It's their Strategic Confidential Plan written in 1984. You should get it and read it. The employees of the nation are getting up in arms about this massive theft, those that are becoming educated and learning what the real law says instead of listening to phony experts who really are working for the IRS called whistleblowers. And by listening to talk show hosts who make judgments and don't even know what they're talking about. When Chuck Harder and Tom Valentine tell you not to even try this because you're going to go to jail, they're misleading you, and it's wrong for them to do that. Send them a copy of this tape. Wake them up, too. The popes of Pablum. But you know, my admonition is listen to everybody, believe nothing. Verify everything. Get the law. Read the law. Stop listening to people. Do what I do. Read the law. Get a copy of the IRS regulations and read them. Read them. And don't listen to all this baloney that you can't make heads or tail of it. If you're an intelligent person and you understand how to read, you can. If you know how to look up the definition of words and go to cited sections and see what they say, you'll be amazed. You'll be amazed. Tens of thousands of employers across the nation are going to find themselves faced with a decision to honor their employees' requests, which entails defying the IRS, or to go along with the IRS only to have the employee put the employer in court and sue and maybe end up owning your business. You might wish to run to your attorney or accountant for advice in this matter, but try to bear in mind that most of these people are a part of the problem and not a part of the solution. The Constitution is not even required reading in any of the law schools. Don't believe that? Go get their required reading list and look at it. These people are not taught the real law. They're taught what they are supposed to enforce according to the power structure that teaches them. Ask your lawyer or your accountant exactly what law requires someone to file and pay income taxes. Their answer will most likely be the Internal Revenue Code. Then ask them to look up Section 7806B, which states that the entire code has no legal effect. And several other proofs of this are available upon request from the Pilot Connection. At this point, folks, we've got to take a little break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. I'm just giving you enough here to whet your appetite and not quite enough to get yourself in trouble. Don't try to exercise any of these things without professional help, such as the Pilot Connection can give you. You write this down. The Pilot Connection, 6333 Pacific Avenue, Suite 334, Stockton, California, 95207. That's the Pilot Connection, 6333 Pacific Avenue, Suite 334, Stockton, California, 95207. Or you can call them at area code 209-957-5493. That's 209-957-5493. Now, if you're listening and you're an employer, I'm sure that you're afraid of the IRS because of all of the propaganda that they put out in the media over the years. But the truth is, folks, that the IRS only has one weapon, and that weapon is fear. Fear. Which in truth is false evidence appearing real. They operate under the color of law, not the real law. They're criminals. In actual fact, they are criminals. In the late 1700s, 96% of all Americans either knew the law or had law books in their homes. In the 1990s, the direct opposite is the case, folks. Only about 4% of Americans have law books, and half of them don't know what the law is. A quick look at the United States Constitution would show you that real taxes are duties, imposts, and excises. And you would learn that a direct tax on the people, such as income tax, is forbidden by the Constitution in 19 ways, unless the tax is voluntary, and that's exactly what it is. The IRS does not have one single law to fall back on as its defense, and that's why that phony whistleblower last Wednesday night didn't quote any laws and didn't quote any sections of the IRS code, because he can't. His position is indefensible. So what is this IRS whistleblower group all about? Well, it's to fool you folks, because they know that if there's an IRS whistleblower group and they're telling you that there's no way that you can get out of filing and paying taxes, that you'll say to yourself, well, gee, if the whistleblowers are blowing the whistle and they say I gotta file and pay taxes, then I gotta file and pay taxes. And they crow about having passed the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. Folks, that's a smokescreen. You had